Welcome back to the Bass Capital Radio podcast. Today we are talking about some history and we are branching out. We've heard a lot of history from Palatka, but we are going out to the wonderful Bardin. And today I've got the resident Bardin expert, Mr. Doug Cruz. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I don't know how expert I am, but I've been there all my life. So
I think that makes you an expert, especially as we were talking. Let's first talk about I was on a journey to see how we can further the reach of all things Putnam County. You know, we talk a lot about Palatka because we're based right here in Palatka, but I think that Putnam County is a lot bigger than people realize.
Yes, it is.
And
it's quite large.
We've got a lot of woods, and we've got a lot of different, reaching all the way down from, Crescent City, the land area, all the way up Melrose, Florham. I mean, there's a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah.
And Bardin is a very interesting place in the fact that you guys have your own Bigfoot out there.
Yes.
And the Bardin Booger has been a current topic of interest, but we'll talk more about that in another episode. But anytime I have somebody come on, I ask them how they made it to Putnam County, but you are born and raised here.
Yes.
So how did your family get to Putnam County?
I'm not sure. My great grandmother, I believe, might have came from Bradford County but was born in Georgia, and that's on my mother's side. And then my paternal grandfather came here from St. George, Georgia, and that's a story in itself right there. And he never went back. He lived here and met my grandmother here, my grandmother Cruz here, and lived here the rest of his life. And the other grandparents, I think they were more or less born right around here. And as far as how they got here, I don't know where they came from. I haven't dug that deep into it.
Sure.
But they're from here.
And so let's say year-wise, when you were sharing a little bit with me about how long ago they settled in Bardin, or at least to your knowledge, which was in the 1800s?
Well, my grandparents, most of them were born around in the 1870s, early 1880s, so they were here that long. And my great-grandmother, like I said, I think she was had come here from Stark, but her family came from either South Carolina or Georgia. But she was born in the 1850s, so I don't know exactly when she came here, but she was here when my grandfather was born in 1870s.
Yeah.
So
they've been here for a little minute.
Time. Yeah. Got a lot of relatives.
Absolutely.
Lots of cousins.
and Bardin is a very tight-knit community.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
You guys have a lot of nature out there.
Yeah.
I love, you've got a little place called Bud's Grocery.
Yeah.
And that seems like it's the local hangout spot for a lot of people to reconnect with one another.
Yes. And for the last 20 years or so, we've got two stores now. We got Bardin Grocery as well. So people hang out at both of them and sit around and talk sometimes and, just chew the fat, so to speak, or whatever you want to call it. So.
Well, tell me a little bit about Bardin. What makes it so magical? Because obviously your family has stayed in that area, and there's a world to see, but Bardin has been home.
Certainly, many of them have moved away over the years for whatever reason, jobs, just wanted to go somewhere else. But a lot of them have stayed there, and it's just. I guess people want to be with family or be close to people that they've known. I do. I like being around people that I've known all my life. I see people almost daily that I grew up with, that I've known. And as the years go by and more and more of them have passed away, there's not as many of them, but there's still some that I still see people that I started to school with, went all the way through school with. But a lot of them have moved to other places, but they still call Bardin home, most of them, and they still remember.
And I've heard a lot of great memories of just playing in the woods as kids. And
that's what we did. We grew up playing in the creek. Edenai Creek flows through Bardin and eventually flows into the St. Johns River. And that's where we spent our days in the summers. And growing up, just swam all day long, played all day long, and having a good time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, tell me, let's talk about your family. So we've talked a little bit about family history, but is your wife, did you meet her in Bardin? How'd
I'm
you
not
meet her?
married, so
Oh,
I don't
not
have
me.
a
Oh,
wife. No,
okay.
okay,
Okay.
so
Excellent.
um, but again, know people all my life that we grew up with, and some of them have married people that were there, and some of them not.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a big joke with most people. You can't date him, you can't date her. Your cousins, and they wouldn't even realize it. You
Oh,
you can't
yeah.
do that.
That happened. Ironically, we were talking about that, and when we talked about Bardin, I mentioned who my family was, and I think somewhere down the line we're related.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
So my dad is a Wilkinson there's two different Wilkinsons to my understanding in Putnam County. There's the Bardin Wilkinsons, and that's the part of the tribe that we're related to.
Hmm.
And I had a interview yesterday with a lovely woman who is helping me figure out my heritage and genealogy. So it'll be interesting. I'll come back to you when I get my family tree put
Yeah.
together.
There's Wilkinsons in Bostwick and Bardin, but they're
Hmm.
related. They're the same. They're really the same group of people. Um, you don't realize now that many years ago these roads like Highway 100 and Highway 17 were
Hmm.
not there.
Right.
So Bardin and Bostwick are not that far apart. So people
Geographically,
was
yeah.
going, they had roads, I guess, through the woods and everything, and they come together, and some of them married somebody over there and moved over, stayed in that side of uh, the county, and which is not far at all. I mean,
No,
when you
no,
go
no.
through the woods, Bostwick and Bardin are very close, so there's a lot of those. But there is some other Wilkinsons that's
Hmm.
in throughout the county that I don't know if they're related or not. They could be. I mean, it's crazy how when you start discovering all that stuff, when you
Oh,
start
yeah.
looking. Yeah.
So what got you interested in your own family history enough to, do some research? Because you were talking with me about finding out when Bardin was established.
Yeah.
Is that something that you grew up hearing about,
Kind of,
or?
because my mom was real, she was real, always told me a lot about, well, you're kin to this person, how, and some people didn't do that. They
Hmm.
didn't talk about their aunts, uncles, cousins, and stuff like that. Not the way my mother always did. Well, she would be talking to me sometimes and say, well, you know who that is. That's so and so. No, Mom, I don't know who that is. But, well, that's your cousin. I said, well, I didn't know
Right,
that.
right.
So I mean, my mother was pretty much into that. And again, like I was telling you earlier, that when you grow up with people, you realize who they are, who they're kin to, who they're married to, who they were married to, or maybe
Right.
not, and that's how you know these people. But a lot of people, younger people now, it's not that interesting to them because they can't put a face or a life with this person's name. They can't.
Sure.
So I've always been able to do that, and I've enjoyed that, and
Yeah.
I've got a lot of relatives, lots of them.
How many siblings do you have?
I just have one sister,
Just one sister?
and she has not lived here for a long time. She lives in Melbourne now. Her
Okay.
husband was in the Air Force, so they traveled around quite a bit, and then they settled in Melbourne, being stationed there. And I just got lots. I think we had 35 first cousins, just first cousins altogether. There was
Wow.
35, and because my mom came from a family of 8,
That was my next question.
and then my father's family was 7. My my mother was all sisters, except they only had one brother. So
That's a lot of
their last
girls.
name was Hilliard. So that name has almost disappeared from around here because the only
Right.
brother that had the name was and then he had 2 sons, but only one of them had a son, and uh, they've moved. They live in St. Augustine, I think. But so that name has almost disappeared. But
Hmm.
a lot of the names like Wilkinson, Johns. My grandmother was a John, so there's lots of Johns.
Hmm.
So those names have stayed around. I mean, they're still there. Wilkinson, of course. There's
Hmm.
lots of Wilkinsons still out there. So
Now, Bardin has a good stretch because when I think of Bardin, I did not recognize that Bannerville is part of that Bardin
Hmm.
geographic. So tell me a little bit more about, you take a right onto Bardin Road and how that expands out.
Okay, it goes out about probably 7 or 8 miles, and you get to Bannerville Road,
Hmm.
which goes to the right and to the left. There's East Bannerville and West Bannerville, and that community has just it is. They still call it Bardin. I mean, it is Bardin,
Hmm.
but many years ago it was kind of separated because I think probably because um, there was not that many people out there, and some people lived quite a distance apart.
Right.
They didn't have cars, and so it was a chore just to get somewhere. So Bannerville was out there. Then further down the road is Harlem,
Harlem. Okay.
and that's that people many people still call it that, Harlem, but it's all pretty much considered Bardin now,
Hmm.
but the whole area. But at one time, I understand there was a store in Bannerville,
Hmm.
and that was in the 1800s. So I mean, I don't have any big evidence or
Right.
concrete evidence on that, but I mean, people tell it. And also, Harlem as well had a post office and a store because people were so far apart,
Sure.
And Barton had a post office too. Can I read this to you that I was
Absolutely.
telling you about? Sorry,
No,
should have had it already up.
no, that's fine.
Um, Bardin is an unincorporated community in Putnam County, Florida, United States, located northwest of the city of Palaca. It was named after Hazard Bardin, circa 1900. He was the first resident and operated a turpentine distillery at the intersection of Bardin Road and the creek, which is Edina Creek. Well, I disagree with this a bit because I don't think he was the first resident.
Hmm.
He might have been the one that really got the name there. I don't know if it was called something else before that or not. But my grandparents were born, like I said, in the 1870s, so that was before that.
Right.
I'm interested in maybe checking in to see if it was called something else before that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know further out towards Florhome, there was a community called Edina,
Hmm.
and I don't know. It could have been, some kind of connection to that
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
and that's not there anymore. The creek runs through there. It starts up around, I believe, it starts up around Putnam Hall
Hmm.
and comes all through the woods down there and comes in. And then it joins Sims Creek in Bardin area
Okay.
and flows into the St. Johns River. So that creek was a big, big part of our life growing
Oh,
up
for
because we
sure.
we
I
played
bet.
there all the time, all
Hmm.
day long, and at night sometimes too, and just had the best time growing up there. It, and people and there's not as many places that you can go to now there that where you can get down to the creek because it's just a lot more people and a lot more land's been sold and stuff like that. So,
Right. Not as much
but
access to it.
yeah, not the access that we used to have at all.
Yeah, I can imagine as people move in, the land being sold and private access. I don't know what got me on a kick where I was doing some research for something. And I found some videos where people are very protective over their waterway access.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
uh, now tell me how you have seen Bardin change over the years.
The amount of people that live out there, the traffic. My buddies and I, when we were growing up, sometimes we would we would just hang out on the road at night, the highway I'm talking about, and there wouldn't be a car come by for 45 minutes or an hour, and then it might be only one car,
Right.
and then sometimes late at night, and that was just us hanging out, just fooling around.
Right.
But then around 11 o'clock, you'd see people come, or before that maybe, people would be coming and going to work at Georgia Pacific, which was
Ah,
Hudson Paper.
yeah.
Paper, that's about the only traffic that was coming by now at night. But now there's traffic all through the night, all through the day and night. It's just, that's one thing. Just a lot more people. And back then, the majority of the people that we knew that were there, we were related to.
Okay.
Now there's lots of people, because of many of them have passed away or moved or whatever. And like I said, there's still people, of course, that are related, but it's not near the number that it used to be. But now there's a lot of people moved in from other areas, which is fine. I mean, it's growth everywhere, and that's in every community, I would say.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
we had a school there, and all the little communities had schools back then. I went to the first grade in Bardin School.
Oh, okay.
So it closed after I got out of the first grade.
Oh, wow.
It closed in 1961, and they moved us all to Silver Lake School, which is now Kelly Smith School in Francis. And they had closed the Francis School, and I think Penn Isle had one. They put us all there. Boswick had a school, but their schools remained open for quite a long time after that. But it was kind of exciting, because then you got to meet new people,
Right.
new, and when we went to when we got up to the 7th grade, then we went to school in Palatka.
Right.
Now, growing up, people out there used to call that next year I'm going to town school. That's what they called it, town school.
I love it.
But Bardin School was pretty cool. We had 2 buildings. One building had 2 rooms in it. It had the 1st and 2nd grade in one room, and it had the 3rd and 4th grade in one room, and then a separate building had the 6th, 5th, and 6th grade in that room. It was a whole separate building, but it was just neat growing up there, and it was in many ways it was sad that when they closed all the little community schools, because people were really closer.
Oh, yeah.
Between going to church and school. That's where everybody's social activities were.
Oh, I could totally envision, it's your home area, you familiar being around there, and then you got your little grocery, and you got your school, and then you got church. So really, you just stayed in that community.
Yeah, before Bud's store was there, his father-in-law ran a little store, and it was much smaller than his store that he has now. And he started off in he took over the store from his stepfather. I think I said it wrong. I think before it was his stepfather, and he retired, and Bud took the store over. But before that, we just had a little store there, and they didn't have a whole lot. He had cold drinks and cookies and canned goods and stuff like that. And that's where everybody would, rather than going, it seemed like back then that going to town was a long ways. It really isn't. It's I mean, where I live and where Bud's store is, it's only 6 miles to intersection of 19 and 100.
Well, I'll tell you.
But back then, people thought it was just a million miles. Of course, further out there, it is further, but I mean, it's not that far.
Well, I grew up in San Mateo, more Satsuma area, and for me, I remember growing up, it was a trip to town. Like if we were going to town, we weren't going to do it a number of times a week. We were going once a week for whatever we need.
Too.
Yep. So I can understand that.
On Saturday, we would come to town, and usually with me, my sister she was older and already grown and married, but I would come with them, and I'm sure they did it when she was little too, but they would come to town, and Daddy would go one way, and my mama would go one way, and I would go one way. Back then, I would never let a child now in this day and age roam around town, but we'd spend most of the day there, and then they end up getting groceries. But it was only a once a week thing. You come to town,
right?
And some weeks I wouldn't go, but most of the time I did, because you wanted to walk around and look at everything,
Right.
But we did that on Saturdays. We went to church. And that was our social gatherings. People would meet up in town in Palatka here up by, in front of the courthouse or what, and talk and stuff. And that's when a lot of times when people would see each other.
Right.
And But then we'd have our church activities, whatever was going on there, dinner on the ground or ice cream social. We'd have
Mm-hmm.
those sometimes for Sunday school and stuff like that. Easter egg hunts, of course, at Easter and Christmas plays, and that was our social life,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And then also many of the people there that were there were relatives as well.
Right. Because again, taking a trip into town, and
If they weren't real close, they were at least some cousin down the line, you know. So
so very, very close
yeah,
community.
we're
Everybody
very
took
very
care of
close knit
everybody.
place. Yeah, very
Absolutely.
much so.
Well, you don't have a Dollar General, so
No,
really it's something very special. Even, East Palaca's got one, San Mateo's got
I
one.
think the reason we don't have one is because we're not on the main highway. If we were on the main highway, they probably would have one there.
Right. So
But we've got two good stores.
yeah, I think there's something magical about that, about having this little place. I mean, but we'll take a side journey about the Bardin Booger.
Okay.
Okay, so tell me your knowledge as a local resident about the Bardin
Well,
Booger.
that came along later in my life. I mean, the talk about it. My
Mm-hmm.
when we were when I was a kid and everything, we never ever heard of anything like that. I don't know exactly how it got started
Mm-hmm.
exactly, but it was probably in the late '70s, early '80s when it became popular, and then Bud Bud Key at Bud's
Mm-hmm.
Grocery had a lot of stuff going on about it. You know, it was a draw for people to come there and talk to him about it.
Yeah.
We had newspaper reporters come. We had
Yep.
television interviews. I've been on several of them interviews, and one time the National Enquirer. It wasn't National Enquirer. It was Weekly World News. That's what it was. Came in and interviewed my uncle and me, and a lot of the stuff they put in there they exaggerated or changed it, you know.
Right.
That was uh, but my uncle was one of the ones that he said back in the, and this would have been probably in the very early 40s, late 30s, early 40s. He said that they had gone to town, it was at night, they had gone, I think they had gone to the movies and were coming home, and I don't know exactly where he was. Most all the roads in were, except the main road was a paved road. They were all dirt roads, you
Right.
know, clay
Right.
roads or dirt roads. So they were on one of those roads, and he said something raised up on the side of his truck, and it scared him. And my aunt said it smelled real bad,
Mm.
and I wish I can't remember all the details of it, but that's kind of one of the things that had gotten it started. But I've never seen anything like that. Now people play tricks on each other, or used to. They would. We had a guy that dressed up like had a like a I don't know what it was, like a gorilla head or something. They
Mm-hmm.
put it on him. He put this old coat on, and he came, and we were all at this time we were all at Bud's Grocery in the parking lot at night,
Right.
and there's some lights around there, of course, but we were all just hanging out talking like we always did. Well, he comes from behind the church over there and scared us all so bad. I mean, we wasn't expecting it, knew nothing about it. I dove through the window of the truck that I was standing by. The window was down,
Oh my
and
gosh.
I didn't open the door. I dove through the window. I mean, and he laughed his butt off about that. That was just so funny. But of course, it really did scare us. We didn't expect nothing like that to be coming
Sure.
up. You know,
Sure.
the light was pretty dim over there where he was coming from. But people done stuff like that. But as far as actually being something there, I've never seen anything, and I've been
Right.
there forever. So, but there's been a few times that people have seen some kind of weird tracks in the sand and stuff over in,
Like
but
Prince.
footprints,
Hmm.
you know. So who knows? I don't know.
I surely don't, but I'm gonna get to the bottom of it eventually. I promise you.
That would be pretty cool.
Absolutely. So the family, I know that with it being close out in Bardin, is there like a residential historian, somebody who is the go-to for all things Bardin that you guys look up to?
Well, there used to be. Most of them have passed away now, and
Mm.
we are the older generation now. And I, I mean, I don't claim to know everything at all because I don't, you know.
Mhm.
And a lot of people ask me a lot of questions. They call me, how was so and so kin to so and so? And usually,
Mm.
and if I don't know, I try to find out, you know.
Sounds
But
like you're the local
well,
historian
I don't
now.
mean to be. I didn't set out to be, but it's just, and I don't know everything. Just like what I said, I don't know everything, but I do know who the people I grew up with and around, who their families were. And a lot of people do ask me questions sometimes, and I
What kind of
answer them to the
questions
best.
do you get?
Well, mainly how am I kin to this person or that person?
Okay.
In fact, my cousin, just one of my first cousins, just sent me a message 2 days ago on
Mm-hmm.
Messenger. How am I kin to so and so? How are we kin to him? He said,
Right.
and I explained it all to him. He said, I never knew that, and we're pretty close. I mean, like this person's mother and our mother, mine and my cousin's mother were first cousins,
Right.
but as people get older, sometimes they don't. They get into their families and they're not socializing so much with
Right.
the people that the ones that they grew up with, and that's the case with me as well as my own family, and
Yeah.
you don't see them as much, but thanks to these phones and Facebook and all this kind of stuff now, you stay in touch with
Oh
them a lot
yeah.
more.
Yep.
I was able to see a cousin, my first cousin's daughter, which just this week, I hadn't seen her in a long time, but she came by, and still stay in touch. And I think this has made a big change in
Oh,
that, at
absolutely.
least to stay connected somewhat, because you're not. Before we had that, we wouldn't hardly sit down and call someone that we
Sure.
didn't, unless we were real close to them, or
Yeah.
we wouldn't. But now you'll send them a message, or,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
a little something, or maybe a picture or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I've done that. People have asked me for pictures. Do you have a picture of so and so? I've had quite a collection, a pretty good collection of pictures. I got a lot of them on my phone.
We'll be sure
So,
to. If you shared with me that you could send those to me, and
mhm,
we'll drop in some old pictures from
okay,
Bardin. I'd really like to. Um, you know, I get why it's so special. I feel like the world has come up to such a fast pace of things.
yeah,
Everything's overly inundated. I just think about how many stores, even from when I was a child, Palaca has got. And then even East Palaca, like when they got the Dollar General or Dollar Generals, and then
hmm,
they, Burger King, Taco Bell,
right,
McDonald's. I remember as a young child just being excited to be able to drive up to the dock of Burger King, in
yeah,
East
yeah.
Palaca when my dad would take us on the boat. But things are being
I remember when they built that Burger King,
yeah.
when it wasn't there.
Right. And those kind of memories where before it was heavily
Yes,
populated,
yeah,
just being
right,
able to enjoy seeing and being in that. Um, I think there's something magical about Bardin that it hasn't been touched in the same way. I mean, I know that there have been developments,
yeah. It's
but
definitely changed,
it's
but not as much as a lot of places have.
right. I think that it's still got that hometown magic
Yeah.
feeling, and again, family is very important. And
Hmm.
is there anything who's if somebody's watching and they're really interested in facts about Bardin, why is it so special, or what may have happened out there through your unintended designation as the Bardin knowledge man here? What is it that you might share with somebody?
um,
Anything
you
you've
mean about the past,
yeah,
or
yeah, anything you might have
well,
discovered.
for us growing up, it was just we were so united.
Mhm.
We were just everybody just knew everybody so well,
Mhm.
and they were looking out after each other, and we still do that out
That I've
there.
got a sense
People
of
still
that.
do that. Even people that we've got some good people that have moved in. Great people that have no roots there,
Right.
whatsoever, but they're just good people are everywhere when you sit. And look for them.
Absolutely.
But for us growing up, we just know so much about each other. A friend of mine told me one time, she said, growing up with all these people, and we're related to many of them and everything, and when you see a certain person in one family acting a particular way, and it may be good or maybe bad, you know why they're acting like that, because you know where they came from.
Right?
You know,
Yeah, yeah,
you know
yeah.
if it was something that kind of bad. Well, you know why they're like that. You know how
It's
his
just
daddy was, you know,
exactly. He's
or
just
but
like his
or
daddy.
good stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Her mama was the same way. You know,
Hmm.
she's just like her mama. Her mama would do anything in the world for you, or his dad,
Right.
or their daddy, or whatever. There's been some really wonderful people come out of there. Really has.
Absolutely. Do you think that we have lost the sense of community that Bardin has?
I
Or
think a lot of places have, and it's kind of it is it's not gone from there, but it's not the same as it was at all. And
mhm.
you know, in
Which
life
is
now, nothing is the same as it was years ago. Not a lot. I mean, there might be some
absolutely
places that are, but everything's
someplace without cell phone signal.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But
um,
I loved growing up there, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. You know, the people, and like I said, I've got friends, and they, even some that don't actually live there anymore.
mhm.
I've had these friends since I was born, or I say born, since we were old enough to know we could be friends. You know, I
Right.
mean, some live in Georgia, some live, I mean, all over. I mean, we got people all over, but
And you guys still stay in touch.
still stay in touch somewhat.
That's
You know,
amazing, though.
it's not like an everyday thing, but yeah,
Yeah.
you stay in touch with them. Or one of my best friends is a girl that I grew up with, and we've stayed, and we're related, but we've stayed in touch our entire life. She went in the Air Force, and she retired from the Air Force and lives in not South Florida, but Brevard County, and we've stayed very much in touch, and we always on birthdays or whatever, and I go visit them when I'm in that area.
Oh, that's
So,
awesome.
and she still has some family here too, and we're quite close contact. But I've got a lot of friends like that, and friends that you just don't, but you don't forget. I mean, when you meet up with them, it's like it hasn't been 5 minutes ago I saw you. It might have been 2 years ago that I saw you,
Exactly.
but it's still. I mean, you just fall right back in.
Yep.
So, and the
It's
other ones that I see quite often, it's always just some once in a while you send it. Nowadays we send a text. You doing okay? Or you know, haven't seen you lately. You're okay and all. And
right.
then we do that.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of us, or send each other jokes a lot. You know, especially with all the things that we have access to now.
Yeah.
You, oh, she would like this. This is her, right? Or this
Right.
is him. He would like this. Or got one buddy that I send. We send jokes back into all the time. You know, stuff like that. So we're quite close knit still. The core ones that are
Yeah.
still there.
Well, that's a good indication of a good friendship. You know, my best friend moved to Kentucky, and she came down this weekend, and it was like she never left. You know, just pick up like
Yeah,
whatever, just no, continue
and
the conversation.
I know there's a lot of negative things about the cell phones and stuff,
Mm,
but it has it has given us the opportunity and the way to stay in contact with people, because
mhm.
I got some cousins that live in Mississippi, and I wouldn't sit down probably and call them on the phone, you know,
Right.
unless I really had something. But every now and then you send them a little message. You doing okay? Haven't heard from you in a while. Haven't seen you in a while, you know.
Right.
So, but then again, it don't have to be in Mississippi. It could be somebody living right down the road that you just don't see them.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
that happens. I say that all the time. It's like we live 2 miles apart and we hardly ever see each other, and that's
That
just the
is the
busy world we
way of
live
the
in.
exactly. I think that's just the way of the
It's just the
world.
way of the world. It sure is. But here recently, another thing with our cemetery out there, a whole bunch of us got together back in I think it was in April, and done a cemetery cleaning, which you didn't get it
Mm,
all, but that's another thing to unite people with. You
yeah.
know, people have always done that around there. You know, but uh, there's just so many ways. Mainly, a lot of our, like I said, a lot of our stuff. It the core was our churches. We got several churches out there, and sometimes we go to the other ones or meet them and everything. And but growing up, that's where we were. A lot of
So
people aren't so. The same people aren't maybe as faithful to it as they used to be. But when we were growing up, that was our social life. You know,
right.
it was
Right.
our social life.
I think I definitely grew up the same way. Spent a lot of time at the church fish fry, and
Yeah.
growing up with friends, and
Hmm.
everything kind of revolved around that. And I do think that it's a lot different than it today than it was then.
Yeah,
Um, but it sounds like to me, Bardin was just and still is this little slice away from all the hustle and the bustle, where you
yeah,
get
it
back
is.
to. I mean, there's not really great cell service out there, depending
I
on
don't
where
have
you
any
go.
problem.
Depending on where you go, I've
According
had,
where you are.
yeah, exactly. But I know out in Bannerville, if it rains too much, the roads get washed out,
Yeah.
and there are people pull each other out. But it sounds to me like it is just still a slice away from all the hustle and bustle.
Yeah, it is. And it's it was a great place to grow up and everything. But another thing that we do even today, people do, and these aren't just people that were born and raised there, they're people that have moved there. But many times, when somebody has an illness,
Hmm.
a devastating illness or something going on, we have cookouts or something to raise money for them. They sell barbecue ribs. They do a lot of these at Bardin Grocery out there.
Right.
They'll have a rib sale but we also done it a few times to raise money for our park. We have a park out there. The
Oh.
county donated the property to us, and it was just sat there for a long time. And I mean, they didn't actually. I don't know if they actually donated the property to us, but we use it for a park. It's Edina Community Park,
Hmm.
and we've got equipment for it, a playground for kids. And when we
Where's
first
that
started,
at?
there's a whole bunch of us got together, and we had people donate equipment to us,
Right.
and it was used equipment, of course.
Right.
But now here, just recently, the uh, whoever the I don't know which committee it was, whatever, but they got us some brand new stuff there. But we raised money to ourselves. We raised money to build we got two little shelters there with a barbecue grill on them, and with
Awesome.
tables. We raised the money to buy the tables and all that stuff. So we raised money in that way. And many times when people, like I said, when they have an illness or they need help, they've lost their home or whatever,
Right.
many times that's what we do.
Right. Well, first, where's the park at?
Well, uh, it's between Bud's Grocery and Bardin Grocery. It's about 2 miles past Bud's Grocery on the right hand side.
Okay. Yeah,
And
because I've been out there and I would love to. I'm trying to recall where that
it's just past
is.
Odom Road and Ranchette Road.
Okay.
It's
I
right
am
on the corner
familiar
of
with
Ranchette
those.
Road.
Okay.
And usually at Christmas we have Santa, and they come out and then take pictures with the kids and stuff like that.
Right.
And we've been we do that. We have a volunteer fire department as well, and have a really really nice building there. And sometimes when the weather wasn't real good, we would have the Christmas thing there right there at the volunteer fire department,
Oh,
because
cool.
when it was extremely cold, or sometimes, believe it or not, in December it's been extremely hot.
Right.
Poor Santa had a hard time with his clothes in that heat. But there's just a lot of things like that that
Yeah.
that people have done over the years.
Well, that's
And
incredible. And to think about, how small a community it is for to be able to host Santa at the fire
hmm
department.
yeah,
Um,
but we've
and
done it at the park too. And then we have a fellow bring a truck with a trailer on it and hay on it,
mm-hmm.
and give the kids a hay ride around the park
Oh, I love
and
that.
stuff like that. I got a lot of pictures of that kind of thing too.
Yeah,
So
we'll throw those in here too.
yeah,
Well, I appreciate you sharing, what it's like growing up in Bardin, and some of
oh, thank you very
the
much. Yeah,
oh yeah, and some of the memorable things. We'll try and get some more facts in, and maybe you could help collaborate with me on the Bardin Booger. See if you
yeah,
can help
yeah.
me connect with some of the people who cited him. But I think we're going to go on an adventure to find Mr. Bardin Booger and
Okay.
see what that's all about. And if you want to, I'll be sure to find the location of the playground, because it really is a slice of heaven out there. Just away from the hustle and bustle, someplace that you can take your kids and
I love it.
go get a snack
I
over at
still do.
Bud's or Bardin Grocery, and
Yeah.
be able to enjoy the pace of life, and obviously come into a community that really does take care of one
You can get
another.
meals at Bardin Grocery too. They cook lunches every day and breakfast, and
There you
uh,
go.
always have something in there to eat.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
it. I like the
Get your
idea of
lawnmower
going out.
repaired at Bud's Grocery and tires changed and order tires. That they're big tire business there. So good
Excellent.
people.
That sounds like a good day to
Wonderful
me.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that I think that pretty much sums up everything that I've heard about Bardin. It's the people that
Yeah.
that they love. So
Yeah. We're a close knit group of people, and even with the new people coming in, you get to know them too, and
yeah,
they become family as well.
I appreciate it, and I love that you guys have as a community just made people feel at home because we're all living this life
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, I had a pleasure talking with you, learning a little bit about what it looked like then and things that you would do and some of the changes and what it looks like now. And so I will be reaching out for sure that we
Okay.
can hunt down maybe this Bardin Booger fella and put a face to the name. Maybe we'll find him. But
Okay.
thank you, Doug, for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
And if you have any facts, history, anything you want to share about Bardin or you're interested in anything we talked about, be sure to leave a comment below. Until the next episode, you guys have a good one.